Houston Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud is officially overrated in Dynasty leagues. We will discuss why on this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can follow her on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. You can also read her at Pro Football Focus and Behind the Steel Curtain. And it's a Wednesday episode, so of course that means Matt Williamson is here. Follow him on Twitter at Williamson NFL. Go check out his new YouTube channel, same name, Williamson NFL, over there as well. We've got a busy show for you today. We're going to discuss Brock Bowers, his value in superflex leagues. Who's the best rookie wide receiver value in one of the best wide receiver classes that we've seen in recent memory? But I want to start with C.J. Stroud because on a different site, we're not going to mention the site by name, we're seeing C.J. Stroud being drafted and ranked as QB1 in superflex leagues. Man, we love C.J. Stroud, but this is asinine, right?
Love C.J. Stroud. But yes, asinine. I mean, I just pulled up a list just to make sure I don't skip anyone. But I'm taking Josh Allen after they take a first-round receiver. I'm taking Mahomes. I think they're going to add some sort of receiver, maybe in the first round. I'm definitely taking Lamar, even if they do nothing. Burrow versus Stroud, I think I take Stroud. I'll take Stroud over Herbert at the moment. I didn't bring up Jalen Hurts on purpose because I kind of have mixed feelings about him, to be honest, as a football player. And I don't know if the Eagles are as happy with him as everyone seems to think, but I would still prefer him for Dynasty. And here's my spicy one is I think I'll take his division rival, Anthony Richardson, over Stroud. That one's close, of course. I mean, we have such a small body of work, but I think Richardson's going to run for 800 yards a year.
I thought you were going to say Trevor Lawrence over C.J. Stroud.
I don't trust the Jags.
I know. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Kate, what do you think?
I mean, yes, it's asinine. And my biggest takeaway from this is that, boy, are we getting overreactionary to a down year from Patrick Mahomes and we haven't even had a down year from Josh Allen. We're just planning on it. Obviously, you have to be concerned with the loss of Diggs, with the loss of Gabe Davis, but I also think that we're looking at a much different Josh Allen now than we had back in 2019 when he did not play with Stephon Diggs. If we can't count on him having taken a step forward as a quarterback, they probably shouldn't have handed him the bag, right? Like, we're at the point in Josh Allen's career where the assumption is that he has developed enough that he's going to elevate the playmakers on his field. We know, Dalton Kincaid, great asset. One of the best receiving tight ends in this class. He's young, going to be tied to Josh Allen for years. Khalil Shakir. We've talked about Khalil Shakir and the fact that he had a very underrated season for most of this year. There's no way they're done making moves at receiver. To me, the biggest takeaway from this is that we are overreacting so much to the Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs trade that maybe Josh Allen's the best value in Dynasty right now, and he's probably at QB2. Like, if you're at QB2 and you're still a huge value, I'm buying.
Yeah, I mean, so right now on Dynasty League Football, he and Patrick Mahomes actually have the exact same ADP. So basically 1A and 1B there. Then there's a drop. Yeah, then there's a drop off. CJ Stroud being drafted as QB5. Matt, I want to know, what would CJ Stroud have to do for you, this year in the next few years, in order to get up to number 1 or number 2, or could he really never probably get there?
Kate laid this out great. I mean, obviously, this is a massive tidal wave reaction to the Stephon Diggs trade. Now, I think we also have to think a little bit more big picture here too. Diggs is only on a 1-year deal. I mean, he is going to be a free agent at the end of the year, as is Nico Collins. Now, I mentioned how I don't trust the Jags. I do trust the Texans, though. They have shown that they will put a lot around their young signal caller, and they understand to put him in a good position. So I like all that. But the thing that holds me back with Stroud, big picture, is I don't think he's naturally a runner. I think that's just something that happens here and there, and that's such a cheat code in our game. Maybe he's an Aaron Rodgers in his prime like runner, where it's 3rd and 8, they play man coverage, they turn their back, he gets 9-yard slides, pops up, and then starts throwing again. But he's never going to be a 500-yard a year type runner. I don't think he's going to score many touchdowns on the ground. So I think that's a massive limiting factor for him.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, especially in comparison to, like you said earlier, his division rival, like that's not naturally a part of his game. And I think what you're banking on is that we're going to continue to see already that sharpness as a passer elevate. And like, to be fair, if you are going to be a top tier elite passer, you don't necessarily need a huge complement of rushing yards, right? Like I'm thinking Kirk Cousins, right? He's been a top 10 quarterback, just kind of perennially. And I think CJ Stroud is a much more natural mover and a much more natural runner than Kirk Cousins. So like if we project him to advance as a passer, I'm not necessarily as concerned about the lack of rushing upside because I still think he's got a little bit of juice there. But yeah, it's never going to be the pinnacle of his game like it is with an Anthony Richardson. And I don't know. I'm struggling to see the value because I think that's probably also you mentioned the fact that Diggs is on a 1-year deal. Still don't understand how that all came to fruition. By the way, I have to imagine that Diggs, tried to make that a part of his deal is the only way he would show up to a new team if he got a trade. But like, there's no guarantee, right? You assume that if things go well this year, that Diggs would want to re-sign in Texas. But even then, you have the concerns about Nico Collins leaving. Like, this is no stable situation necessarily.
I want to ask you guys
real quick. I throw one thing in. I love the Cousins comparison, and I think he's closer to Cousins than he is Josh Allen. I mean, we have to throw the age stuff out because Cousins only has a couple of years left. But as you're saying that, I'm sitting here thinking, what's the difference between Stroud and a healthy Joe Burrow? I mean, I think him and Burrow are like the same guy. Yeah. Great receivers, young, phenomenal football player. They run a little, but that's not their game.
I want to ask you guys really quickly about 2 recent trades for CJ Stroud in superflex leagues. The first one is CJ Stroud for Trevor Lawrence, Pat Freiermuth, and 2 2025 second-round picks.
I'd say it's fair.
Kate?
I think it's fair, and I'm going to be honest, I'll probably take some of the perceived value here with the Lawrence side of that because I do think, generally speaking, like obviously this year was a nightmare of a season for Trevor Lawrence. I think still the best of Lawrence is yet to come. You still have a pretty good athlete. You have phenomenal size. I still think the community, generally speaking, is really down on Trevor Lawrence, but probably not contextualizing his health situation in 2023 enough. So I'll take the value there.
I think Lawrence might be my biggest buy low quarterback in Dynasty, period. Yep. I think he's awesome.
Last one, CJ Stroud for Jalen Hurts and Devontae Adams.
Oh, I'll take the Hurts side.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take the Hurts side all day.
All day. Like, you throw Devontae Adams in as a sweetener. It's like, yeah, I'll take that.
That's
we have them ranked very similarly, right? Like,
yeah.
So if you get a guy that can put up some big numbers for the next 2 years, sure, why not? Pretty easy.
So if you own Stroud, maybe just put him on the block for that. See what flies come around.
Yeah, because there's a lot of hype around CJ Stroud right now. There's going to be 1 or 2 owners in your league that want to go out and get him. So yeah, put him on the trade block and see what happens. All right, let's transition over to the tight end spot because I love Brock Bowers, maybe my favorite player in the class. But how high would you draft him in your super flex rookie drafts? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and in the NHL. Baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. We've also got the Masters that start on Thursday. Can't wait for that. We've got the NBA play-in games that start next week. It's a great, great time to be a sports fan. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and make your first bet an automatic win with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Are you having to turn down the volume because of all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, let's talk about Brock Bowers, the Georgia tight end, who's actually having his pro day right now as we speak. Matt, I want to ask you, how high do you feel comfortable drafting Brock Bowers in your Superflex rookie drafts?
So to pull back the curtain, this question came in from Matt Williamson NFL because in one of my Superflex leagues, I am tight end needy and I have the 7th pick overall. And that's, to me, the earliest I can consider him. I mean, again, we don't know where these quarterbacks are going to land, but I'm definitely taking the top 3 receivers, Harrison, Neighbors, and Odunze, of course, over him. In my opinion, that's easy. I'm taking Caleb Williams over him. I'm taking May, and I'm taking Daniels in whatever order. I think 7 for me is the earliest I can consider Bowers, who I absolutely adore. I have nothing bad to say about him. I'm the guy that took Kyle Pitts 3rd or 4th overall in his rookie draft too. It's not a tight end thing, but even in those couple of years, I think tight end has become more plentiful. I mean, I think there's others that I can live with, that I don't have to have, I think it's not as scarce as it used to be. And then I bring out the question, J.J. McCarthy, if he goes in the top 5, or let's say he goes in the top 6 and lumping the Giants in there, he's going to be a starting quarterback before long. I think I take him ahead of Bowers, but that's where I'm having some conflict. And then I go to Brian Thomas and I go to A.D. Mitchell and think they're going to be first-round picks. I might take them ahead of them. I don't think I take any running backs, though.
Matt.
Come on.
Okay.
Bring it up. That's why I want to have this conversation.
No, I think this is a great conversation. I loved taking the mental journey through your brain. That was it was a trip.
Scary place.
It was a scary place, but you know what? We came out, we're all unscathed, so I'll take it. Now, I think you're kind of right on spot. I think number 7, it simultaneously feels too late, but also just right. Like for the generational talent that you are going to get at the tight end position, that kind of wave of security. I mean, you are generally just getting an oversized wide receiver. Like that is what you are getting out of Brock Bowers. So for me, when it comes to the evaluation between Brock Bowers and this sort of second tier of wide receivers, I think that's where it gets a lot more interesting. And I'm going to counter you on that because I think for me, if Brock Bowers did not have tight end listed next to his name and he was simply put a wide receiver, regardless of draft capital, I think he would be the 4th best wide receiver in this class, only behind that top tier. I get the flash and potential here with Brian Thomas. You've got the size, you've got the speed combination, but I just think Bowers is like point blank a more talented receiver. And I think he has all of the physical attributes that, you love in an oversized wide receiver, essentially. Like, I think that's where I'm going to use my guiding light is to ignore the tight end designation, right? Where would Brock Bowers fall in your rankings blindly without the positions next to him? And I think he would fall at 4. And that's why I'm going to give him the edge over that next tier of receivers.
So I want to ask you a question, Matt, because right now he's being drafted in superflex leagues as the 8th overall player. So right around where you were thinking. But I think
Right.
that assumes a neutral landing spot. Where could Brock Bowers go that you would actually be even more excited? Like, is it the Bengals at 18? Is it the Colts who've kind of been rumored to be interested in him? Is there like a destination you're hoping he lands to help his dynasty value?
Yes, kind of. First off, Kate, that's a great way of looking at it, because one of my concerns with Mitchell and Thomas is volume. For the real world, I like them a lot, but I don't know that they're going to get as many targets per game as Bowers, even in their first rookie contract. I mean, it might take a while to get there. The guy that I love for volume is McConkey, but George already showed us who they're going to throw to when they were on the field together. So that's not the greatest argument either. But anyway, the Jets is the obvious one, and I think that's fine, not great. It's a B landing spot. But a real sneaky one for me is Denver. I just want Sean Payton's mind to move him all over the place. And I know their quarterback situation won't be great, but there'll be garbage time. His competition for for targets would be very, very low. They used the 14th pick. I think they picked 14th on him. Obviously, they have a plan in place. And if they don't go quarterback, I think it's very possible.
I want to give you another one that I've been thinking about, because I think everybody around the NFL believes that the Chargers are going to trade out of that 5th spot. And maybe the Vikings are the team that they trade with and they pick up the 11th pick and the 23rd pick. I would just love to see Bowers with the Chargers and have him basically be the number one option who Justin Herbert's throwing to all the time. This is the Greg Roman offense that loves to feature the tight end. And I just can't imagine how good Bowers would be playing in a dome, playing with Justin Herbert, playing with Jim Harbaugh. I think there's like 3 or 4 landing spots where he could get picked and actually increase his value. So I'm buying him, and I have no problem drafting him inside the top 6 or 7 picks. I think after the top 3 receivers, and then after the top 2 quarterbacks, that's when I at least start to consider Bowers when I look at my roster, because I just think he might be like the 3rd or 4th best player in this entire draft.
I have another awesome landing spot that'll never happen. But before that, I reveal that one. Do you guys both take him over McCarthy today in Superflex? And let me expound on that. What if Penix or Nix goes in the first round? Would you take them over?
No.
Okay, no matter what. Okay.
No, I would say I'm kind of leaning towards taking McCarthy over Drake May if McCarthy goes to the Vikings, because everything is set up for him. Yeah, because you've got 2 really good receivers, you got a good tight end, you got a good offensive line. If Drake May goes to New England, I just don't know. I mean, we could be waiting years for him to be fantasy relevant at all. So I think the landing spot for the quarterbacks outside of the first 2 matters a ton.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat. The biggest question for me is McCarthy to the Vikings, and that's going to be the greatest fit. If McCarthy ends up with the Giants, no thank you.
Yeah.
It's McCarthy to the Vikings that I think, from a scheme perspective, from a personnel perspective, like that's going to be the situation that every rookie quarterback absolutely dreams of. And if I'm a rookie quarterback not named Caleb Williams, boy, would I love to fall to like pick 5 or 6 in that tangible range for the Vikings to draft me. But that's really the biggest question mark for me is McCarthy. I don't really care about the draft capital for Penix, Nix. I don't think there's enough upside there personally for me. If you guys haven't gone back and listened to our pre-draft profiles, we have profiles on all of these quarterbacks. Talked a little bit about how landing spot could impact this, but Penix, generally speaking, haven't been high on him due to his age, a lack of rushing upside. Bo Nix, just so much of his production came as really a game manager, and I don't know that translates to fantasy upside either. So they're totally off the board for me, regardless of landing spot. Bowers over those 2 quarterbacks, but it's McCarthy that I think that could swing either way. But I can't stop picturing McCarthy in a Vikings uniform, and I think that would translate to immediate top 15 production at the lowest.
Marcus, I think the Chiefs should send the 32nd pick, next year's 32nd pick, and the year after that 32nd pick for Brock Bowers.
Gosh, how amazing would that be? But you know the crazy thing
sweating
is,
just thinking about this.
I know. If you look at some of these mock drafts by some really, really respected people, you pretty frequently see Bowers fall to pick 16, 17, 18. If that is the case, it won't cost a lot for the Chiefs to go up to, let's say 18 to go up and get him, or 17 to get him. So
get ahead of the Bengals.
Yeah, get ahead. Not completely ruling it out, but it would be a lot of fun. All right, let's talk about the best value right now at the wide receiver position when it comes to this rookie class, because this is an incredible class that goes 20 deep. We will discuss that next. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We are here with Matt Williamson and Kate Majuk, answering your Dynasty questions. And let's finish up with this one. Kate, I want to know, who is your favorite value right now at the wide receiver position when it comes to this rookie class?
I'm actually going to throw it back to yesterday's episode. If you haven't listened to that, go see what wide receiver I'm talking about. And it's Roman Wilson, who we do all this work leading up to our player evaluations. And then I kept going back and I was still watching Roman Wilson, and I'm just like enamored with his game. I think he's such a safe prospect. Again, like I think kind of in the same way that I'm enamored with Rome Odunze, who's not necessarily the flashiest of wide receivers. I just think he is a really good football player, a really tough competitor, a great route runner, has speed, can play at all levels of the field. Like I continue to go back to Rowan Wilson. And Marcus, you were cool on him. We got some comments here on Twitter that said, thank you for trying to boost his draft stock because I have no interest in him. Like, I'm realizing that maybe I'm like on an island here with Roman Wilson. But again, I think you just have to throw on the tape. Don't look at the box score, and you are going to be as enamored with Roman Wilson's game. And if everybody else is not on that island, great. I will take the value of Roman Wilson because I think his game's going to translate very well to the NFL. Maybe not going to get a year one banger, but I think you could get a prospect that year 2, year 3, year 4, you're going to be like, I got this guy in like the end of the second round, third round of my rookie drafts, and he's a consistent weekly contributor to my dynasty team.
Matt?
So I don't know the ADPs off the top of my head, but I just pulled up a rookie rank list, and I wanted to see who do I think is listed way too low. And the two that really jumped out at me are Pearsall, who I prefer to Wilson a fair amount. I like both, but Pearsall to me is a much more well-rounded player. And Burton from Alabama. I think Burton could be a second-round pick. I mean, I think he's very, very talented.
Yeah, so Jermaine Burton currently on Dynasty League Football is being drafted as wide receiver 18 among the rookies. So that means you can get him like outside of the first 3 rounds. I think that's a really, really good call. He is somebody who we've seen on the consensus boards continues to rise, which means if he gets that second round draft capital, it's kind of all systems go for his dynasty value. I'm just going to mention Johnny Wilson from Florida State, 6'6", 231 pounds. He was actually more productive than Keon Coleman at Florida State last year. One of the reasons I like him is, first of all, he's insanely cheap, and there's been some rumblings about him potentially making the switch to tight end. And I just think that's going to really increase his value because he's a big receiver who plays big and he plays fast. So making the switch to tight end like a Darren Waller, I just think he's an incredible value right now as wide receiver 20, wide receiver 21.
An interesting thing about Wilson is he won't be for every NFL team, but he will be for the team that picks him. You know what I mean? Whoever picks him is going to be really excited about his usage. But a lot of teams aren't going to be interested, I don't think.
And I was concerned that he was going to run in like the 4.6s, which is not slow for a tight end at all. But it's not really a wide receiver speed either. 4.52, 40-yard dash at 237 pounds. Like if a team wants to just have him be like a power slot receiver, they can do that. So I won't be surprised if he goes in the 3rd or 4th round of the draft, but he is somebody like at that stage of my rookie draft. So I just want to gamble on traits in athleticism and size, and he certainly has it.
Especially if they put a TE next to his name in a year or
Absolutely.
two or whatever, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kate, any final thoughts?
No, I think these are all interesting names. Now, I do think maybe for another episode we can talk about what would the maybe position changes do for dynasty value. Like, maybe where would Wilson rank if we actually saw that tight end switch, and how much would that impact like immediate dynasty value? Because I think that's a great theoretical discussion that we just don't get to see play out often enough here in the NFL. But
Would he
if
be
that,
tight end 2 behind Bowers? I think so.
Oh, this tight end
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
I do not love anybody behind
No.
Bowers. I think Jatavion Sanders is pretty overrated. So why not? Why not?
interesting, very interesting.
All right. That is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Go check out the channel on YouTube. We post videos every day over there. Go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Go follow Matt on Twitter at Williamson NFL. Go check out his new YouTube channel as well. Go follow Kate at Kate Majuk. I'm at Marcus _Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.